Good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure to be with you all for the WSAI Destiny Faculty Cup. So, on behalf of Vadwani School of Data Science and AI, I kindly extend a warm welcome to our distinguished speaker today and the faculty members, students, researchers, and participants. And to formally welcome our speaker and to introduce him, I kindly invite Dr. Gopal S. Krishnan, Research Director for Center for Responsible AI at IIT Madras. Peace.
Uh, Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this distinguished fellow talk. So, our speaker is Dr. Venkat Ramaswamy. It's my honor to welcome him.
Thank you.
He's a professor at the Ross School of Business, University of Michigan, with over 45,000 citations in Google Scholar. His research and his practical ideas have earned him wide reputation around the world. In 2004, along with C.K. Praklati, he introduced the idea of co-creation in their best-selling book, The Future of Competition, Co-Creating Unique Value with Customers. So he built on this idea further and expanded to his two other books, Power of Co-Creation in 2010 and Co-Creation Paradigm in 2014. So his recent books include Co-Intelligence Revolution, How Humans and AI Co-Create New Value, published in 2025, and recently launched just yesterday, launched Co-Creating the Future with AI. So I should also add that one of the co-authors is also associated with the Center for Responsible AI, Mr. Krishnan Narayanan. So he also has written a 3-part series called The Dynamic Relationality Theory of Creative Transformation, made up of grounding mechanic ecosystems in life experiences, creative transformation of organizational ecosystem, a field book of dynamic relationality theory and machinic life experience ecosystems, complex transformations of intelligence. These been 2024, 2025, and 2026. He is a distinguished fellow, faculty fellow with the Vadwani School of Data Science and AI. And I, on behalf of all of you and Vadwani School, I welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
Sure, thanks a lot. So welcome everyone. And I just want to first start by thanking Professor Ravindan for giving me this opportunity to speak and of course being honored with the distinguished faculty. And as part of that, what I'm going to do today is talk to you a little bit about some of my new thinking and work, building on all of the things that he discussed. And we're actually now furthering our collaboration and we're actually working on that. So I'll be talking more on what we're going to do next together. And what I'm going to do is take about maybe ideally 45 minutes. And hopefully we can have some interaction. And most of my talk will be at a rather high level so we can talk about the basic ideas. And what I'm going to do actually is start with a very, very short clip from Modiji's talk from the India AI Summit. Now the first soundbite, the 30 seconds is in English, a minute, and then he goes into Hindi. I don't know how many of you relate to Hindi. I don't have it transcribed, but I'll just play the first part and then I will very quickly translate. I just wanted the first minute, since he talked about all of my work on co-creation. I was very happy when he spoke thus.
We are entering an era where humans and intelligent systems co-create, co-work, and co-evolve. AI हमारे काम को और अधिक स्मार्ट, एफिशिएंट और इम्पैक्टफुल बनाएगा. हम बेहतर डिजाइन करेंगे, पेज बिल्ड करेंगे और बेहतर डिसीजन ले सकेंगे. इससे और ज्यादा लोगों को हायर वैल्यू, क्रिएटिव और मीनिंगफुल रोल्स भी मिलेंगे.
So the last part, I don't know if you understood it, is basically what he's trying to say is that we are in this new era where humans and AI will co-create, which is the subtitle of my book. So I was very happy when he said that. And but then the thing was, I think the challenge was like, how do we build these capabilities and build the infrastructure so we can actually kind of usher in this new era where we are now all have access to intelligent systems. I'm going to do something which I know the answer to, but how many of you use ChatGPT? Probably everyone here, right? But interestingly, like let's say on a rather daily basis, how many of you like would ping it like in a day or two? Okay, so I think increasingly we are now getting used to interacting with this intelligence, right? I remember at one point I used to use the browser like maybe once in a day or two, right? Back like 25 years ago. So I think more and more we are going to interact with intelligence. I think it'll become like de facto, just like part of normal lives as the systems obviously get better and you find it more useful. So so just as a background, so there's a lot of efforts going on in terms of building out India's national AI infrastructure. And I'm just very fortunate to be also involved with that. In fact, Nandan Nilekani had kindly endorsed my book, The Co-Intelligence Revolution, and he had basically said, we really need to think about how AI can serve humanity and not the other way around, right? So the basic idea here is that how can we think of AI as more of a partner? There's a lot of talk about AI as a tool. We're going to go beyond all of that. And I'm going to actually argue that AI increasingly is going to be a participant. It already is, right? And interacting and working together with us. And so there are a lot of people who are basically trying to build those kinds of capabilities so that we can bring more benefit to humanity. So that's my basic foundation. And I call that co-intelligence, so that humans and AI can work together to create new value. Now, to make all of this happen, just like the internet helped us all connect and communicate, we need new infrastructure. And it actually turns out, like just over 10 days ago, Japan actually announced the world's first national AI infrastructure. Now, every country is trying to build AI infrastructure, and this is kind of what Japan basically announced. And so all I'm trying to say is that increasingly we have countries understanding that we are in this next quote-unquote industrial revolution, if you will, just like we built roads and highways, and now people are now thinking about how do we build intelligent systems where for the first time in humanity, we're able to produce intelligence. Now, the first time I heard the word produce intelligence, it was very difficult for me to wrap my head around it, right? We know how to produce physical goods, produce services, but I said, what do you mean by produce intelligence? Like, I'm already intelligent, right? How many of you think you're intelligent? We're all intelligent, right? We are intelligent beings. So what does it mean to produce intelligence? Like, what kind of intelligence are we talking about? So when I use produce intelligence, and that word is used a lot, what people really mean is produce computational intelligence. That's the way I like to do it, but I'm not going to say computational intelligence every time. So when I say produce intelligence, that's what we mean. Right? We already are intelligent. We continue to evolve being intelligent. There are other beings on this planet that are intelligent besides humans. But the point is that these are intelligent systems that are increasingly intelligent, as we'll see. They are bringing a new kind of capacity for us so that we can actually amplify our capabilities. So there is a lot of talk on their AI where you kind of look at the glass as half empty. I'm the opposite. So I'm an optimist. So I'm looking at the glass as half full because basically what I'm going to argue is we are the ones that build AI systems. And even today, they're humans that are building these systems. And yes, those systems are growing and intelligent. And it's really up to us to steer these systems in ways in which it benefits humanity. So in other words, it's up to us. And if something happens in a very negative way, we are ourselves to blame. And so we need to kind of manage all of that and govern these systems very effectively. So what I'm going to basically do is to just share some ideas in how we can go about doing that. And I will also spend some time talking about doing this at the level of organizations. So in today's talk, I'm going to focus the talk at the level of organizations. Clearly, organizations are part of society, and society is a larger sphere. You can apply a lot of these principles. And like I said, I'm doing a lot of work in terms of societal systems. Obviously, it has implications for us as individuals, right? In terms of the communities which you operate, etc. But the bulk of my talk will be at the level of organizations. In fact, that's really what I'm trying to do next, because increasingly, organizations understand that these intelligence systems can facilitate the way in which they go about organizational activities. And since I also come from the business school, a lot of my interest is at that level. So that's kind of where we are going to kind of situate most of the talk. So it turns out that the book that I wrote last year, 2025, The Co-Intelligence Revolution, which we started, Krishna Narayan and I started this book a year after ChatGPT came out. So ChatGPT came out November 30th, 2023, and then 2024, basically you spent a lot of time looking at 23 and 24, we spent a lot of time looking at how ChatGPT is evolving. So November 30th, 2022, so 23, 24, and then the book came out in 25, and by the time the book came out, as you all know, in today's world, AI moves very fast. We had just barely talked about what's called agentic AI. You all heard of ChatGPT. I'll try to explain it very simply in a moment as to what it's really about. And you might have heard the terms generative AI. I'm going to stay away from all these terms and try to explain things in everyday language, which I find to be very important. Otherwise, we get caught up in jargon. So there's that. And how people today are now building what are called agents, which is the reason we released another book yesterday, which really starts talking really about proliferation of agents and how agents are now working as digital agents. It's very interesting. If I went back before 2023, if I told you the word agent, or showing my age, for a long time, agent, I'll think of travel agent, sales agent, right? But now somehow the default is, when you say agent, people are referring to digital agents, I find. So it's like that has become the default. It's very interesting. It's like a non-human agent. But before, agents used to be like, human agents, right? We used to talk about, like I said, sales, travel agent, this agent, that agent, and so on. Agents are very important because, as we'll see, they actually help us execute a lot of things. And so they can be our pals, right? If we view them that way and we build them that way, and we'll see. And increasingly, organizations see the power of these agents in helping all of us get various kinds of work done. But now things are going beyond agents, which is why now we are working on the next set of things, where now companies realize that these agents, while they're operating in the digital world, they can help us in the physical world, in our everyday reality. So that's where I think now it starts to go back to where we started with in terms of helping people in their daily lives, especially across society. So that's kind of where I'm going to spend most of the time today, the next half hour. Now, this Co-Intelligence Revolution book that came out last year is actually was just also launched in Japan. And so that's the Japanese edition. And the reason I'm saying that is when I wrote the Japanese edition, this is like 1 year later. So this edition is being brought out by an entity called NTT Data. You may have heard of that company, the Japanese company. And so I wrote a couple of chapters there in terms of what this means for Japan. Japan, as you know, it missed the whole digital revolution. I'm sure when you bought electronics before, people have bought like Sony products, Canon, right? It used to be very big. I mean, in our household, we only want Japanese stuff, right? Cars and so on. Now, let's see what happens. But they really have an opportunity here to now leapfrog and make a comeback. They're making a lot of investment because while they built all of these things and robots and so on, they were all with what's called embedded software, right? Whereas suddenly Silicon Valley created this whole thing of software and software as a service, all this new software stack. But interestingly now in this intelligent age, now that's going away. People talk about SaaS apocalypse and so on because the computer has been reinvented with all of this new intelligence. So in this world of intelligence, like I said, how do you produce intelligent systems? And there are lots of companies in Japan now working on this. So maybe I got lucky because this book is being launched in Japan and my LinkedIn is full of Japanese things every time I have to go and do language translation. But it's having a lot of traction because, I didn't know that they were going to build this infrastructure, right? In fact, I had spent 6 months planning for it to be launched now. So I call it a cosmic coincidence, all right, by the grace of God, because really it's having a lot of traction. It's just like, I can't even reply to it because I don't know Japanese. So it's one of those strange things I find myself in because there's a lot of interest in it. Now, one of the things is that if you think about those Japanese names, I'm sure you all heard of Toyota, right? Now, Toyota, it turns out in the last year, which is what I had written about, has built Toyota GPT, okay? So you can imagine that as like ChatGPT, but Toyota GPT is all things Toyota. It's trained on everything Toyota knows. All right, whatever it could find its hands on, whether it's structured data, unstructured data, all of those PDFs and documents and videos, because Toyota has been practicing this for such a long time. You can imagine the amount of content they have, right? So this is like enterprise data. So now what's happening in the world is they're going from like ChatGPT, of course, everybody's using it, whether you're a consumer or business. It's now entering into organizations, which is why I'm going to spend most of my time on organizations. And all organizations now believe that they need to build their own intelligence systems. And while the traditional intelligence systems like your ChatGPT was just built from all of what humanity had produced, right? That's the data. That's public, quote unquote public, okay? From all of the things where we have spoken. And so really, if the internet had not happened, I'm not sure if this would have happened, right? Because thanks to the internet, there's so much of conversations and text and of course, PDFs of books and so on, but now they're slowly paying out royalties to those people as well. In fact, by the way, I got a royalty check for my work on co-creation because my book was used to train ChatGPT. And from Anthropic, it came from Anthropic, not from OpenAI, I got a check. It just actually, they're sending checks out. So they went ahead and used all of this data, right? And we won't go into all of those aspects, but that's already done. And they've trained these big models because that require a lot of data to just train a GPT. I'm just going to very tongue-in-cheek call it general purpose technology, even though it stands for generative pre-trained transformer. It's a general purpose technology. My interest is in, hey, how can Toyota build this? And I just, coming from TVS, TVS Motor, anybody ride motorcycles, TVS? Any TVS brand owners here? Okay. So TVS, basically, I spent a day and a half with the management team there. And I actually went through the Toyota GPT for almost like half a day. I'm going to do very quickly here. But they obviously know this, and they're saying, hey, we want to build TVS GPT, right? Which they already started building, by the way. So every company is going to, whether you call it GPT or whatever, they're going to build their own AI, right? It's already happening. All the big companies. I mean, the amount of data they have is not even funny, right? So the point is that today companies are going to build these systems from their own data. Now that raises lots of interesting questions because, like, of course, they own the data, and increasingly they want to own their own models, right? Otherwise, if everybody is just going to use GPT, how are these companies going to differentiate themselves, right? And they can't be leaking their intellectual property to all these companies. So they're all woken up, not just woken up. I mean, I think you have to be fair to them. Like it's 2023, it takes a couple of years for any technology, right? For people to understand it. And okay, now we can, bring it into our company and use it. Even quality took a while, by the way, just to build quality practices in the past. Like how do you ensure this motorcycle that comes off the production line is of high quality product? So Toyota actually built this whole thing called the Toyota production system, made quality famous. Everybody in the world uses the quality principles and Six Sigma, Lean. And I remember when I was a student, right? I used to take classes. I'm an alumnus of IITM Madras. I used to stay in Ganga Hostel, engineering, mechanical engineering. So clearly, I took a lot of quality classes. So for me, this is absolutely fantastic, right? Because I used to spend a lot of times in engineering design and quality of physical product manufacturing systems. And then, of course, we had the whole IP service revolution with software quality. But this is all pre-AI, just so you know. Now, basically, what's happening is all of this is now, again, next generation with AI systems. It's very different from physical quality to software quality. Now, in the interest of time, I won't discuss much of software quality, but that is part of what we are working on. I'll focus a little bit more on physical products so we can relate to that, but happy to address questions in terms of, so what are the next practices of software engineering, software development, and really from an intelligence quality perspective. So if you look at Toyota, and I'll take maybe about 10 minutes to just very quickly go through this, what they're doing. This is very new, actually. And thanks to all this Japanese thing, I'm getting a lot of people sharing, and in fact, I'm learning very fast because it is very hard to kind of research something in Japanese. So it's very fortunate. So what I basically learned, and today, a lot of companies, and Toyota basically it's very interesting. It's very hard to do research, right, with these companies, but they want to make it public. Because what did Toyota do? It led the way with Toyota quality production systems. So they want to do it seems like, do it all over again, right? Saying we built the Toyota production system. And what I'm basically saying, and just with some language translation, and I had said in the book, companies like Toyota should be building Toyota intelligence system. So what I'm going to talk to you about is this new idea. I have a term I have coined saying, we need to now start thinking about building like intelligent systems, right? And ensuring those intelligence of high quality. So that's kind of where I'm going in terms of intelligence quality management, okay? It's like, to me, that's the big mantra, okay? So right now, Toyota is doing its thing. It started by, he said, okay, let's now build enterprise AI. And then what happened was, every department, every group was building his own GPT. Because, I'm sure some of you know how to do that. And all of a sudden, you had marketing department doing marketing GPT, sales GPT, HR, manufacturing. This is crazy. Now you have like as many GPTs as there are people maybe. So they immediately realized they needed to build a shared intelligence infrastructure. And then you say, wait a minute, wasn't that what Prime Minister Modi was talking about, the national level, right? National infrastructure. So Toyota says we need to build an enterprise level infrastructure. Does that make sense? Because that infrastructure has to support all of these different AI systems. So they quickly jumped and they call it a shared intelligence infrastructure. And they said, we're going to build one infrastructure, but many GPTs within that infrastructure so that we can have engineering, manufacturing, R&D, design, finance, all sharing security of these GPTs. As we'll see, orchestration of skills. I'll talk a lot about skills so that people are doing this in a very methodical way, right? And they have access to basic skills of these digital agents. So I'll give you some examples as I go along. So Toyota's fundamental innovation, which blew me away, and I was all over it when I saw this, saying like, wow, this is exactly what you should be doing, is that what they're saying is, in traditional AI, you build a model, you prompt it like ChatGPT, get a response. Their basic insight was, that's not very helpful. Everybody you have your chats on your local device. I don't even know what you prompted and what you got, right? And what the quality of that was. So it's not reusable. So their innovation now is they're building an infrastructure where intelligence becomes reusable. So if one group somewhere does something and produces interesting intelligence, how does somebody else in the company first come to know about it and get access to it as appropriate? Make sense? You can see the power of this, right? Because what is the number one problem that in the modern world all these organizations have created? Silos. Now, for the first time, the way I look at it is, let silos be silos. The way to solve the silo problem is not to say, hey, let's remove silos. That's never worked. We've been trying that for like 50 years, right? But what's happened is people are getting more and more specialized. Fantastic. So let's continue that. So all of a sudden, there's a new answer to the silo problem, which is completely different, which is people can be in silos, but not agents, meaning digital agents. So the digital agents are the ones that they're not human beings, so they don't work in silos, right? Like if I'll pretend to be a digital agent, I can talk to you, and you can talk to there, even though you may be in one group, you may be in another group. We can have conversations. This is agent-to-agent conversations, and let them talk and cut across silos. But then I'm in my silo, and then you have a design problem. Then you're saying, I don't care about some engineering production. I want design data, right? I want intelligence to help me in my design task. Make sense? And then you're in finance or you're in HR. So this is what I'm writing about. Hopefully next year I can come and give you a talk on that next book. That's what my next book is about. We've already started working on it, but we're trying to do it in collaboration with WSAI on this whole idea of organizational intelligence. So today I don't want to talk about AI, I want to talk about OI, organizational intelligence, because that A word is very troublesome. And in a moment, I'm going to explain like how we think about intelligence. Yeah, Amazon does many things, but Amazon is in the traditional world looking at a platform's products, but I know what you're trying to imply. Yeah, but those are cloud platforms. So it's a good segue saying that's the old world where we build platforms in the cloud with traditional computer systems. So it's a perfect segue for where I'm going next, which is we are going to build intelligence systems. Intelligence system is not IT. Intelligence is not information. Information technology world is over, in my view. That's over. You can still do IT systems, databases, all that stuff. That's like behind the wall. Like, the agents can go and deal with that, right? If we build IT systems, to me, agents may use the system. As a human, I don't want to deal with those systems. I want to just, I'm looking to do something, give me the intelligence that will help me accomplish it. You see what I'm saying? You can still have those systems behind the scenes, legacy systems. But if you look at the new AI native companies, they're not building off the old software stack. They're building off new intelligence stack, which basically is that data can be wherever it is. My goal is to try to convert it to intelligence. So in a moment, I'm going to really spend about 5-10 minutes explaining like what is intelligence other than our natural intelligence, right? Because it's very important. And I'll share with you a perspective I found extremely helpful to think about intelligence. And once you get that perspective, then you look at AI a whole different way. At least it happened to me. Okay, so very quickly in terms of Toyota, they have all these different agents now. And traditional software engineering, going back to what you're saying, you would build all these specific applications, the various duplications, it's slow to scale. But now what they're saying is there is one intelligence infrastructure and we can build different agents. So let me give you some examples. So one of the things they built is GearPal, which is intelligence in terms of manufacturing intelligence. So typically there have always been production line failures. And in the Toyota model, like anybody can stop a line if there's an issue, but there are people on the line are trying to diagnose, identify corrective action, what's causing this problem. And they have classic knowledge management systems from the past. They're saying, okay, that's there, but we can now in this new world do very better, because imagine just like ChatGPT, I just have Toyota GPT, but for within manufacturing, I go to GearPal. I just want to know, what do I do next? How do I troubleshoot? And it can help me accomplish that. So basically behind the scenes, it's resolving, but this is the difference. Unlike our ChatGPT, it's learning from every interaction. This is very important. This is the crux of my talk. If you get this, that's it. The difference is that in this Toyota GPT, from every interaction, well, hopefully we learn as humans, but who's learning more is those agents to be more precise, right? So, like I said, we have been talking about machine learning, but this is like a learning machine, the other way around, right? It's constantly learning from every interaction. Now, in a company that is huge, right? Now, of course, remember, OpenAI also learns from interaction, but that's in a very general purpose technology sense. But this is very huge in a company because I can learn, and then I have built this infrastructure, and it's got people who are actually designing this as a learning system. So every interaction leaves behind what's called a trace, right? Now, you can imagine with thousands and soon millions of agents, you have another problem. What's the problem? Too much data. Now, this is very important. A lot of people think of data right now as the data that's used to train the model, right? And of course, for Toyota to train it, you're going to have a bigger problem in what's typically called inferencing. I don't want to get into any technical terms. I want to keep it simple. But when I ping ChatGPT, I'm doing what's called inferencing. Right? The model's already trained. But I'm saying now the game begins, because every time somebody's interacting, I'm actually creating data, interaction-based data. Does that make sense? This is what now is the next practice. This is the next frontier. There is going to be a lot. So people say, oh, we don't have data. That's for training. Well, welcome to the world of inferencing, because as we start now interacting, Toyota is realizing if I consciously now say, hey, you just interacted, that's a potential piece of data. So this is important. Every interaction shouldn't become data. That doesn't make sense, right? So now you have to think about which interaction data should I be capturing and making it part of my intelligence system so that the AI is learning how it should learn. So you can see now that you're going to have a lot of these intelligence managers. So when people talk about job loss and all that, I think it's just, we are so myopic, so short-sighted that we are confusing jobs and tasks. I don't want to, you want to spend time finding out which manual, where it is, how to resolve. Let the agent do that. But once you have the intelligence and you interact, and let's say it's useful to you, maybe the next time you have a similar problem, you want to solve it quickly, or it's a little bit different, and you want to work with your team member to resolve it, or maybe he has had another variation, or it's learned from somewhere over there, and then you don't know that it's relevant, but it knows, and it's connecting, and then when you are suggesting to it, it's able to actually help you with this different kind of the same problem or totally new problem. So can you see that the system's continuously learning? That's the next frontier, okay? And that's what I call intelligence quality management, okay? So like that, they have built so many of this thing. CATIA GPT, this is in terms of engineering design. You get the idea, right? R&D GPT, you get the idea, right? Of course, there are different people to whom it's relevant, material scientists, production engineers, R&D research, etc. And then they even done it for HR, like the Toyota way, culture. Like HR people love this because, like, let's say you're a new person and you say, what is the Toyota way? Where do I even start? Because Toyota way is not something you go and read some manual and that's the culture, right? Culture is something that you live through. It's very hard to teach culture, right? So they used to have, yes, Toyota way, this is how we do things in Toyota, blah, blah, blah. But now as you're experiencing the Toyota way GPT is learning, and the human resource people love it because now they have an actual intelligence system which is learning, and so they bring it, but there is still now intelligence system, the HR person doesn't go away. I'm still here, but I don't spend my time trying to figure out what should become policy, part of the culture, right? So my job is being redesigned, the workflows, but I'm not sitting there looking at all of these policies and manuals. Those are all like, let the agents do it. So if you start looking at this, you can see there's a whole new world coming. Already it's here, right? And so when I was with TVS, very quickly, we were talking about, they do a lot of what's called quality function deployment. Anybody heard of that? Which is basically, when I build these vehicles, I get the voice of the customer. I have to translate it into engineering design requirements, right? And then it goes through the process of product development. And then once it's frozen, okay, then we have to prototype, build it, test it, maybe even go back to those customers. And then we are going to roll this new bike in the market, right? That's how it is done. But now you can say, okay, I can use AI to make it better, like troubleshoot. But what we discussed was, but wait a minute, if you start doing this, why do you want to use AI and do things the old way but faster, which is okay, fine. Why can't you create new ways, right? That makes sense? Now, what new way? Well, when Toyota introduced QFD many years ago, there was no AI. So what did they say? Hey, make sure the front end is good. Make sure you go and talk to customers. You observe them, right? You do what's called Gemba. You walk around and you're like, I'm trying to understand your needs. Don't just go and say, hey, what kind of bike you want? You'll say, I want a bike with power. And you go like, okay, everybody wants a bike with more power. But power for you is different than power for you, right? You see what I'm saying? So they said, okay, there are lots of like unarticulated needs. It's very hard to understand customer needs. Like over chai, the way you'll discuss your bike is very different than if I come to you, then you get everything. I'll do some survey. So, they're all like the best we could do, but it's very hard to capture what you really mean or what you're looking for, right? It's a very experiential thing, right? But we'll see how today, if you think about AI, it's got a lot of promise. Because if I give you, I can say, hey, here, every time you have you go for your bike ride and so on, if you're dissatisfied with something, just talk to this research GPT, okay? Just share your frustration. But we at Toyota, we will listen to this and do that. Now, they used to do a little bit of that, but who listen? The listening department? And that listening department will have so much of stuff. It will go, will go into some database, somebody, they do their best. Somebody will catalog it. But how do you catalog it? By what? It's a very complex problem. They've been working the best, right? But now it's very interesting. When you talk to the AI, that AI is listening and learning, and it will make the connections. What connections it makes is up to it, which is why I'm now going to get into how these systems work, which is like, this seems amazing, right? That they're connecting so many different things and learning about things in ways in which, like, as a human, even like I can't, right? So now let's get into intelligence. So the next 5 minutes, I'm going to give you my view of intelligence. Okay? And if you've been following what I've been saying, and this is why we mentioned those 3 books on dynamic relationality theory, which I've done in parallel, because those books are on theory of intelligence. So if anybody's here interested in actually what is intelligence, theory of intelligence, we have like about 1,000 pages on it, the three volumes, because we spend a lot of time trying to understand what the people who research intelligence, like how do they think about intelligence, right? It's got so many different fields. From cognitive science, you can imagine, to linguistics, all kinds of stuff. But I'll make it very simple for you to basically say what we concluded was, if you think, we're all intelligent, right? You may have had siblings, young siblings, we're all young ones, or maybe somebody in your family has a baby, right? When babies are born, people say, okay, are they intelligent? You say, yeah, sure. But then as they learn, they interact with the world. And then, they get more and more intelligent in different ways. They learn from the relation of the world. So my only starting point, if you connect to this slide, then everything follows from here. Next 10 minutes, I'll give you a theory of intelligence. But the one thing you have to accept that people don't just like have intelligence, a very static view, that your intelligence is constantly changing as you learn and interact with the environment. If you see it that way, everything follows in my presentation in the next 10 minutes. So humans, yes, we've always been intelligent, but our intelligence is constantly changing as we interact in nature, with institutions, societies. So intelligence, to me, is the original, relational patterns are the original fabric of intelligence. And so across all of life, organisms, societies, intelligence emerges, and we're constantly we're constantly learning, right, from our interaction with the world. Now, what I'm basically going to tell you is, for the first time in human history, relational patterns have become computable. And therefore, we are able to create this new thing called computational intelligence. So just like our intelligence comes from interaction in the real world, and that's very different because we experience all of this world, agents don't have this conscious experience of the world. They are in the digital realm, right? Of course, a robot may look around and perceive, right? I own a Tesla, so it's constantly learning when it's driving, right? But that kind of learning is, what I'm saying is that kind of our intelligent learning is different than this one, is what basically I would argue, right? For example, if I were to say, who can tell me, what's on the left side of this, when you came in, what's on the left side? I noticed that you feature some papers and all that, so it's something like that, right? But all these things, who can tell me the one on the right? Anybody? You came in, right? But you probably didn't pay attention to that. But I can tell you, if I was a humanoid robot and I came in looking like this, not only have I absorbed what I saw, I will know from Wikipedia who these authors are from IITM, all their papers, everything, because I've been trained, right? And that intelligence is embodied in my robotic brain. So I'm saying that's great. And then if I were to tell you, there's a tree on the other side, you know what tree that is? You'll say, I don't know. But the robot may just look around and say, it'll tell you what tree, what species, right? You can even zoom into the leaf. And this is not rocket science. This is already, we know it does, right? So what I'm saying is, this quote-unquote humanoid intelligence, as we call it, is great. It's very detailed. It'll do anything, right? It'll come and it may even tell you where that, we're looking at that, but it's just, what is it, Titan, something like that? I don't know, right? It will tell you there, and then, what is that you're looking at? Just like you can point your phone, right? Today, it'll tell you. So there's a lot of knowledge that it has this train on, thing. But honestly, as humans, we are very selective. We don't want to, so our brains are very different, right? We are very creative. We only want to provide selective attention. There are things that matter to us, right? In our conscious experience. And of course, we have feelings and all of that extra stuff beyond just the cognition. So my view is, this is great. I want a partner like that, who's my walking encyclopedia plus more, right? So it's like a walking GPD for me, right? Great. So all I'm saying is, this, for the first time, sorry. What happened now? So for the first time, these relational patterns have become computable. So what has happened is that all this data in the world, conversations, transactions, images, media, documents, wiki, everything has gotten into training these models, right? But what is really going on behind the scenes is, we know how to take these relational patterns, all the traces, which, by the way, pretty much all of it is from humanity. In other words, we are providing the data for the robot to tell me what the robot saw on the right-hand side, what tree is behind. The knowledge is provided by us. The robots didn't write Wikipedia, you know what I mean, right? So the point is that we as humans are the ones that brought the data on which to train. The only difference is, you give me all the stuff. I'm not going to sit there and, in India, of course, there was a lot of rote learning. We used to call it mugging, right? We used to books. There's only so much my brain could hold. And then depending on the question paper, I'll say, then I'm spitting it back. I'm saying, let the robot do all that stuff, which is different, because now there's a whole discussion about how will education change. That'll be we'll be here all day talking about it. But it's all happening, right? And there are different implications of it, whether, at the primary school, this thing. I think education will completely transform. It's the biggest transformation happening already. And I'm a professor too. So the basic point is, this data is feeding into all of this, and now it's represented in some reduced dimensional space where it compresses all this knowledge, right? It's not clear that's how my brain works. In fact, I don't want to know all the stuff, but at least we are inspired by it because it's, as we'll see, these are built on electronic neural networks, which is inspired by the brain. But the idea is similar in the sense that at least we are saying that there are some weights associated with these models and they hold all this knowledge. I don't know if that's exactly how my brain is firing, and then now I'm able to talk to you, and I don't know. But at least we believe there is some at least human brain inspired ways of looking. But actually, once you go into here, it's all math, right? It's just a bunch of numbers which represents all kinds of modalities. Yes, of course, it requires all of that. Yeah. I'm just trying to say what is the nature of this intelligence and why it's complementary to our intelligence. It's not a substitute.
Our basic laptop.
Pardon?
These things can be built with our basic laptop.
Yes, of course. But depends on how big a model. I mean, if you're doing big models, then no. Then you need what are called AI factories, as we'll discuss, which cost about $50 billion for OpenAI, right? Which is why they're building out all this infrastructure. You can build some small things, but most likely you build it on top of these things or use an existing model and do all those things. So all that is there. There are all kinds of things there. All I'm saying is these relations have become computable. Now as humans, right, based on our experience with the world, I won't go into all the detail. What I'm saying is we are now able to bring what is meaningful to us, and we can go and give our intent, we query, we speak in our natural language. But behind the scenes, every time you talk to it, it's what's called tokenizing things, again, without getting into all the technical details. Then it's kind of embedded in this shared space. And therefore, it is able to reason over all of that and then give you an answer, right? Because it has all these different patterns, right, that it's able to find. Correlations, you want to use a loose word, right? So every time you're saying something, it is relating it to many different things. So if it was human robot, I can say, hey, what is the thing, paper, we can go down into who are the authors of the paper that it saw, the tree, and so on. It's all a function, of course, of what is the knowledge on which it's trained. So when ChatGPT happened for the first time, what I'm saying is intelligence, this kind of intelligence became accessible to people. You could just talk and then it responds. And so ChatGPT is just an interface to, going back to your question, this AI factory, which is a production thing, which is very expensive to do, exactly like the question you asked. But now I'm going to now switch my talk very quickly to saying, okay, what happens when you interact with ChatGPT? You're really interacting with a computationally intelligent system. It's an interface to the system. And then you interact and it produces something. If you think it's hallucinating, it didn't create value for you. Or if it says something and you go like, what? Like, this doesn't make sense. But then you can prompt it again, you can have the dialogue with it and chat with it. So what you get is also a function of what you put in, how you interact with it, how you talk to it. It's just like, when you have a conversation with a friend or someone, like it depends on what you talk about, how the conversation goes. Some are wonderful, some are like, okay, it's like, hello, good morning, right? Kind of thing. So it really depends on the kind of interaction you have. So what I'm trying to say is this intelligence is meaningful as a function of how you interact with it. But my point is ChatGPT only produces a computational intelligence. You co-create value with it. That is, you interact with it and the agent behind it to create value together. Now that's very important because a lot of people focus on producing tokens from these factories. These are called tokens, and you interact. I'm going to focus on here because this is what is important for Toyota. It's very important for every organization, right? How are the people interacting with it? What is meaningful? What value is getting created? What are we learning? What risks did we create? And then how do we ensure that that intelligence goes into building the system right so that, like I said, when all of you are interacting things. So what I'm saying is I just spent a few moments saying in computer science and, and also around the world, there's a lot of discussion on how this intelligence is produced from training, and now we talk about inferencing and so on. But inferencing is just getting started. And as we interact more and more, we're going to spend a lot of time in the coming years on how we interact with intelligence and create value with it, right? And the more organizations can understand that, then they'll be able to grow and create more with it. So let me go to now this part, because this is where the action is. So interaction creates meaning, creates value, but it's a function of, you can have one interaction, somebody else's interaction, you say, oh, that was great. You go like, oh, that didn't do much for me. Or for you, the same one point in time, it is good, another point in time. I'm sure you had ChatGPT chat, some were like good, some were like, what happened to you today? right? You feel like that. It's like that, right? But my point is, from the organization's point of view, they keep track of all of that so that they know, okay, this worked for you, this didn't work. What happened? How can we change that, right? Because you're working with that organizational intelligence system. So it's a much more defined problem that you can solve as opposed to world knowledge. Okay, so basically the AI factory produces computational intelligence like ChatGPT. We interact with it. It's like a capability that you have. And the value that results is a function of what makes sense to you, or what question you're asking, and what happens in the system. And then hopefully somebody in the organization is behind the scenes understanding it. So this is the important slide. So in the center, if you want to summarize, AI has learned from humanity. Without humanity, there's no AI. Very clear. Because first of all, the data that's used to train these models come from us. So that's point number one, very important. But now once it's trained, as we interact with it, right, we can also learn from the AI, right? I'm sure when you interact with GPT, you go like, oh, aha, right? Well, that's interesting. Not just depending on how you're interacting with it, right? So, or it says something and it's providing value, then, it's becoming useful to you. So humanity is also learning from AI with AI. And like I said, what I'm focusing on is organizations learning from both. It's learning from how you are interacting with the AI, how the AI is interacting with you, because behind the scenes, there are people who have to build these systems, right? And so AI is actually not a tool, in my view, it's actually a participant. It's helping you create value and more meaning and so on. So enterprises today are learning from experiences of all their people, all their workers, the customers, partners, whoever's relevant for Toyota, the dealers, the people who ride the bikes, to the people who are selling it and designing it, developing it. Internal, I call it like inside out, outside in, and like outside. Right? All of these people. Of course, they're starting from the inside, which makes sense, right? It's the most value for them. And slowly now they are going to the edges and saying, hey, we'll change how you do sales, service, marketing. We'll change the front end in terms of design, development, so on. And then finally, hey, Toyota is also very interested in sustainability, building intelligent transportation systems and interacting with people in society and helping society, like if people move around. We have, I think, a mobility institute here, etc., right? They also have those. But really the core of their action is, how can we make our current Toyota organization a better organization with this intelligence? Okay. So what I'm saying is, again, these are all very busy slides, but I just want to give you the high level saying the purpose of this slide is that intelligence is a very strange type of resource, right? You eat food, it's gone, right? You produce something, okay, maybe it's recyclable, okay, there's some renewal, okay, depending on it. But by and large, we know that a lot of products and services go into places where they become waste. Okay, what about information age? Well, you can have information, but you have old information, it's stale, right? Whereas intelligence is very interesting, because in the process of producing intelligence, now if you're saying this is not very good, we can produce better intelligence because we are going to learn from that interaction. So intelligence, learning, intelligence, it's like a vicious cycle. Virtuous cycle, I should say vicious, it's virtuous cycle, right? So if you design it right, the beauty of intelligence is that it's a recursive resource, meaning it keeps on giving, because the more intelligent I become, more the system can learn, and then the more intelligent I and the more intelligent the agent becomes, together, like remember it's a system, we can become more and more intelligent. So this is why people are all racing to build this infrastructure, because they see all this huge potential in terms of building these recursive systems. So to kind of summarize now, and I'll probably wrap up shortly, and if you have any questions, is basically that if you take where we are today in the world, we have gone from like natural resources, right? You can think of agriculture, etc., to physical resources, like manufacturing, the industrial revolution, to the information revolution, right, with IT. And then we went to, now we are in the age of intelligence, right? Producing intelligence. But what I'm pointing out here is organizationally, we are also, when you think about intelligence as a resource, what companies now realize is there's a new form of capital. Coming from the business school, when you say capital, you think money, right? There is like that kind of capital. But in the business school, we also talk about information capital, like these other kinds of capital, which obviously help you build capital. But now there's a term I've coined called, you have new what's called strategic capital. Because this kind of intelligence, if I know, then Toyota can know like, hey, if I build these kinds of bikes, it will resonate more with the market because they're able to work better from customer experiences. So one of the examples they gave me, they said, Professor, there's always been a problem. Like, two people will say, like, power, I want more power. One person is thinking, like, I'm sitting at this traffic light, nothing. Oh, now it's going to, it's the countdown. Now it's coming to green. And when it comes green, I want power. So I want to be the first in my motorcycle out of the pack, and I'm like leading the pack. I'm just saying what they told me. This is real. One person would say, but they would just say, I want more power, unless you actually go and probe and so on. Another person is thinking, like, I'm just using the verbatim, like outside a white field on a Saturday day. This is like a road. I like to go for the rides, and I want power, but that kind of power is there's no traffic or anything. This is like different kind of power where the road is free morning. But both people will say, I want more power. But in their head, they're imagining different things. Now, there's no way you could relate to that. But today, that person can talk, that person can share a video, can share this, and they're finding that we are able to really connect with a lot of these things, attributes of quality, which we couldn't before. And people can go and then interact and learn more with these kinds of customers, and they can express better things so that a lot of the soft stuff can become better and better and better. So I'm just saying that for the first time in human history, when you create this capital, you're really tapping into all of this organizational intelligence, which allows you to compete better and create better services. So basically, today, we're just thinking of AI, automation, optimization, workflow, right? This is kind of where most companies are. But increasingly, every one of you will be designing in some way. I think you're all like going to be creators. I would use those words, designer, architect, because we are all going to be designing these agentic systems. So our job is not even to think about like how something gets done, which is easy. You can always ask the AI, hey, how do I do this? But what should you do and why? Like, what bike should you have to build and why, right? Where it is about innovation, right? But innovating all these new experiences. So those that are able to do that, right, you'll do just fine, because the agents will do all the execution for you. But you'll have to design these systems and govern these systems so that the intelligence is very powerful. So really, when we talk about AI, the shift is not, hey, from technology to AI, we have models, agents, they can reason, they can do all these things. But it is a participant with us. It's like, I'm sure in some of the Zoom meetings, some of you send your agents, take meeting notes, I don't know. But in every company, there are 5 people, there's actually 10 things going on. Each one has got their own agent taking notes. And sometimes they're not in the meeting. Like, I let in the meeting, right? Let it take notes. I can make it today's call, right? But the agent might, in the future, not just give you a transcript notes, but it can bring the knowledge that you have and ask questions in the meeting that you would have asked without you being there. And then I can do something else, which I think is more higher value add while I get that done. So you may have your own avatars running around in the future for sure. Okay, anyway. So my point is that in this future, as I see it, if you notice, the only thing different in the slide is I put the AI system there. So AI system is one among us. That's the way I look at it, right? It's a participant in this kind of relational fabric that we are part of. And of course, we are going to design how it's going to interact with all of us. And yesterday somebody was talking about drones in agriculture, AI system embodied and, trying to help farmers, but then there's a farmer, there are organizational institutions. And so it's all these interactions that we have to pay attention to next. So to summarize, start from interactions. They're now part of the computational representations. It creates this computational intelligence. We interact with it. Every interaction creates data, but not every data point or trace you want to utilize. You have to think about how to constitute intelligence. And so therefore now you need a process by which you build these systems. Again, in the new book, we talk about 6 things you need to do. You need to think about how to take this learning and make intelligence with it, build these models, build these agents and workflows. How do they interact with people? How do you take the interactions and the experiences and interpret them? Like, I want more power. How do you evaluate and learn? And so this is the new management mantra, or at least that's what I think. Okay. And going back to Modi ji and the Japan example, all these national AI infrastructure, from your energy and the data centers, which are really AI centers, right? They have all these models, the accelerated compute, networking, storage, all of the stuff that as technology, you are asking all those things which we are engineering, they're all going to power this. So what I'm saying is, of course we need to do that, because without that, you're not going to be able to produce intelligence here. But I'm saying increasingly the value is going to come from understanding how it creates outcomes that matter to people in the organization and around. And like I showed you in the previous slide, ensuring that we know how to govern it. It might be my next slide, but not really. I think I skipped that, but I just show that to you. Now I realize the reason I did this is because we discussed that in this new book, which was released yesterday, where we spend a little bit of time on this upper part here. So the first book spent more time here, then now here, and now in the next one you're going to spend more time here, because that's where people are going, right? Saying this, that's where really the action is. And so I'm actually working with the folks in the Indian government to actually say, how do we give this intelligence some identity? Just like you have Aadhaar for your individual identity, how do you give learning identity? So that when the farmer is using some intelligence, the farmer knows, hey, the system is telling me I shouldn't plant my things today, I should use this. But is it right? What if I do this and something bad happens, right? That's a very tough problem, right? Because you've got to give proper advice. So can we build systems where there is validated knowledge in the system? And so how do we ensure it's trustworthy? So there's a lot of technical, so now we're back to the technical part of how do you architect and design these systems. And so there's a lot of action in terms of how to govern these systems. And so to summarize at the end, so we need to know how to capture all of this interaction data. But as you can see here, we need to understand how to govern them as well. And then it can be utilized in various ways, from engineering, specification, artifacts, and software. For example, in the TVS context, what does safe ABS braking under wet conditions of a road mean? Right? It may vary across bike types, this thing, people, but you get all this knowledge, and somebody is trying to make some choice about the braking system here and there. They can talk to the TVS GPT and this, and then can say, hey, what did those people in Whitefield talk about it, and those people, right? So this is not rocket science. This is not Star Trek. This is actually happening, right? It is huge. They're already doing it, and they're saying like, wow, professor, it used to take us like 8 months. Now I'm doing it in like 2 days. Literally, they told me that. Like, I'll have to get approval, then let's say contact that department, this thing, and then you get the approval, then, oh, you can't access the data, I don't have permission, blah, 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 right? And it takes so much time finding the right people who will mediate. So people have been tapering all these silos, right? So now they're saying, once we have this, it's amazing, and it's learning. And then you can tell it, was it useful or not useful? Or you're not capturing this. I have some knowledge about things. I've been worked in like wet braking conditions all my life, all right? I can teach you better. Exactly. In fact, now in Toyota, there are people whose job is to be teachers to the AI system. Machine is learning, but you're the AI teacher because you've got a lot of knowledge. So you have to think about the fact that you're both a learner and a teacher. So I think that's the shift in education. All professors will be students like me. All students will be professors, because professors mean they bring their own like domain knowledge. And so we have to build better systems so that you're not just like sitting and listening like you are, but thank you. Because the current technology only allows that, okay? So basically, how do you create this value, the skills? And so to conclude, like when he introduced, I've been working on this idea of co-creation for a long time. And I guess I was about to retire, and this AI came along, and I had to make this thing. I said, like, this is a perfect co-creation between humans and AI. The missing piece for me, because before, to make co-creation effective, it's very hard to have that intelligence, right? But now, with this thing which is connecting, you can have better co-creation, right? Right? It's possible because the IT systems, okay, some knowledge system, some database somewhere. It's very hard to make it useful. But I think now we are in a whole new world. And so my next book is on this. It's like, how can we enhance the quality of intelligence and make it useful across the ecosystem? So how can organizations assure and continue to improve the integrity, relevance, trustworthiness, the learning of this intelligence? Okay. So if you're interested, find it interesting, I have a Substack where I basically try to post. I haven't done much since I've been in India for the last couple of weeks, but I think I already have some 20 posts coming because I've learned so much in the last few weeks. And you'll see a lot more of posts on this topic in the next few weeks as I've learned, and that'll be a part of the next thing. And then you did mention, if you're interested in a lot of the theory behind it, I've also written a couple of theory books, actually a trilogy, on the theory behind this relational view of intelligence. And Professor Ravindran, who's not here, he really appreciated it, and he actually give a good endorsement for the book as well. And now we're looking forward to collaborating further in terms of how can we take this to the next level. Hope it was useful. Thank you. I'm sure there are questions. I don't have answers, but go ahead. But I'll be a walking GPT. You can prompt me and I'll give you some response.
It's rubbish, I feel.
Yeah.
Okay, no more.
Yeah, you're right.
So that's exactly. I mean, you talk about constitution in IQM, and in traditional systems, there has been a approval tree.
That's correct.
So
Exactly.
yeah.
Change request, CR.
As a
Something.
new employee in HR or whatever department, I know these are the questions I'm allowed to answer.
That's right.
Anybody want to give him more something else?
Yeah.
Need permission from my boss or from
That's
my
right.
boss, the boss of my boss.
Yeah.
Are any of these AIs capable today of doing that?
It's very
Or,
interesting.
say, okay, wait a minute, I need the
Yes.
permission from the
Yes, absolutely. Oh, this is all very possible. In fact, the learning and development head at TVS, he said, like, I have like 25 ideas. Now we have to go one at a time, right? Because now they're starting to have the capability to build this. Because that, even though today you may see it, oh, I could do this, right? But the HR person has to be able to now, hey, do I have the capacity to do this now? But there are people who are developers building these AI systems now. They've tried it now in this product development they started. He's saying, hey, just like the HR GPT, I need my own thing. And in that, what you're saying, maybe one aspect in terms of maybe knowing a policy, how it's presented to you, whether it's in terms of travel or expenses or whatever it is, right? Whatever question you have. I have examples of companies who are innovating HR systems like that, in what you're saying, and there are some examples in the book. But what I'm saying is I have not been involved with an organization from the inside doing it, but now I will have the opportunity to. But there are examples of people in HR that have used it for that purpose.
Not the HR.
In the last couple of years, yeah.
My question is not about the HR was an example.
Mhm.
I'm asking if the agent,
Yeah,
the digital agent,
yeah.
is required. He knows when it is required to ask for permission.
Absolutely. The Toyota HR one does that. But there are people then who have to build the agentic AI systems that way. So what I'm saying is, this is going to be all our jobs. What I'm saying is our jobs are going to be how these systems would interact with people. I think that is going to be our job, all of us.
Okay.
We are going to be all interaction designers in that sense, because it will go and do stuff, but you want to make sure, was it done right? How should we do it? And you don't need to go and say, I need to know Python to program this. You know what should be done. And at Toyota, they actually have now developed a Microsoft SharePoint system, which is, I think you all know what that is. You drop your request in on one end and out comes an agent. But that agent will have all the properties which are allowed by Toyota. So what they're shifting to is, instead of all this policy, is ensuring the quality of the agent meets certain standards. And for different types of agents, for different purposes, how do we create a system so that the agent you build? So going back to your first question, imagine I empowered you to, instead of saying, can I do this, you build an agent that actually does it. Mm-hmm. That's kind of where they're going. But when it does that, making sure that it's not doing things which is improper, right? For your use case.
Right.
So our goal is to build the substrate on top of which you can build your own agent. Because today, where we started was, when people were starting to do it, everybody's building their own things, but they're not interoperable. So I think this is kind of where we're going.
Okay.
And then we'll be happier. Because whenever we are frustrated, okay, you can express your frustration, and then, okay, the system may be intelligent enough to pick up on it and then change it, but also empower you to actually customize it. So these are all like kind of movements along this next set of practices. But great question. Anything else, yeah?
So right now we are in this paradigm of co-creating, right? Wherein we are the ones who are responsible for telling whether it's the AI is doing something.
No, co-creating is got two sides.
Right.
The human side, but AI is co-creating with the human is co-creating with AI, both.
Yeah. So are we looking at a future where it's all self-creating?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
From my perspective, or from
Yeah.
my perspective.
Yeah, but self-creating, then you have to tell it what you can self-create and how it can self-create. And there are risks to do that, right? That you see sometimes you see some rogue examples of, like, you decided to do something. That's because the guardrails weren't there in terms of, or weren't designed properly. But could it have some self-creation properties? you're seeing some examples where apparently it does, but I would interpret that as it's doing it because the way in which you have designed it allowed it to happen, right? Unless you say that, which may happen, that they can have their own agency and intentionality on their own. I think right now I would say, yes, it takes action, but right now humans have the judgment and the agency and they're building the systems. But if AI is going to build AI in its own way, maybe in the future, but for now, we don't need to worry about that, right? We have to ensure that these edge cases where all these things happen, don't happen, and understand why it happened. But that's precisely what these systems are about, intelligence systems. Intelligence systems are about like understanding what happened, why it happened, or let's say I went on the bike, it skid, right? Right now somewhere, the crash sites or photos are there. But all this becomes learning for TVS, or if it's a vehicle for Toyota. You see what I'm saying? So my focus is more on like, how can organizations learn from it, and how can we obviously manage the risk better and govern it better? While your question is, I have no idea how these things are going to evolve, but I'm saying I don't need to worry about that right now, unless you're in cybersecurity or whatever, and your job is to figure out how to, to think about these things, which of course some people are thinking about it. But for the majority of the organizations, it is like improving the way in which not just they can get work done, they can create outcomes and impact, in much better ways than before. Even as these systems can become self-agentic.
So I have a question. So you talked about how the models can learn from the interactions, right? So now
Or they should.
they should. So I think now we operate at the level where like the humans initiate the training, right? So
Yes.
we initiate the training. The training happens. Now this model sits as a trained model. It's allowed to,
Yeah.
as we call it,
Yeah. But every time you are interacting in that inferencing, like I said, data is also getting generated.
generated. So are you like telling like maybe there can be a self-initiated process where like the LLM
Oh, absolutely. So that's where all the TDS come in. So I'll give you an example. So take food delivery, right? Well, actually, let me start. I'm staying in a hotel. So I'm allergic to green chilies. Actually happened to me, right? So what happened is like I order something and I say, please don't put green chilies. Like I'm allergic to green chilies. Then I'm ordering really no spice dish. I can handle it. So it comes and I'm going like, oh, like I had a green chili allergic reaction. And there's no chilies. Then it's very strange. So then I said like the green chilies, and then, he says, no, sir, there's no green chilies. So I made sure the chef didn't put. I said, can I talk to the chef? Since, I'm one of those loyal customers there at the hotel and this thing and so on. And they said, oh, 1 minute. And the chef came on and he said, oh, there's green chili in the base sauce. We grind the chili, right? We make the sauce like, it's there, but I didn't sprinkle green chilies. So he interpreted the instruction from the person who took the order in room service, no green chilies. There are no green chilies. So who's to blame? The chef did the job. He said, no green chili. You said no green chilies, no green chilies. You didn't tell me like, hey, is there any green chili in the sauce? Maybe the person should have thought, some people think, right? Or some people give better instructions. I'm just giving you a very simple example. And I'll come back to your question. What I'm saying is, what's going on here? It's not like somebody having information. It's like how what I said is getting interpreted, right? And that context is lost in terms of this. I'm just saying, this happened. But I'm willing to bet you it can happen again in this hotel. Different person taking the order, same thing will happen. It may even be the same chef. You see what I'm saying? Because that trace, that interaction data is not captured anywhere. Now, somebody may have, as part of the job, it's like write down what are the 10 things that customers complain most about and stuff. But that doesn't really help me when I'm interacting. The reason I'm saying that is now, when it comes to food delivery, I'm sure you all use food delivery apps. And there's an example I use of Kitopi from Dubai. Basically, every time you interact and you say like, no green chilies, let's say this happens, the system actually learns and say like, what happened, right? And then they diagnose the sauce. Then they put that intelligence into the system. And when that thing is being made, there is a monitor. It actually says, right, substitute sauce. I'm not making this up. These are actual examples. I have like tons of examples from that company. They are actively building these intelligence systems. But they're saying that, yeah, you're getting food, but people have very unique things like this, right? They're allergic to things and so on. So is able to capture all those things, and they're using that to train the system. Going back to the thing, it happens, quote unquote, automatically. But meaning it automatically, but it knows whom it should provide that thing to. Because when your order is being processed, there are instructions there. I'm just giving a simple example. I don't know that addressed your question, but that's basically the learning loop back into the system, which is happening by the agents. It's learning. So all I'm saying is, when I talk to that startup, they may not use my language, but this is what they're doing. And they're saying, now we are working on how do I make that system better? I said, can I talk to you next month? I'm intelligence quality management. How do you improve the quality of the intelligence, right? So they may not be saying IQM in their heads, but this is what they're doing. This is a startup, right? Which makes sense to them. They're saying, how do I improve the quality of that intelligence making? Does it make sense? Yeah. And co-creating with the customer. I think all of us will be doing that, right? I think that's a challenge.
Take one last question.
Yeah. And then I'm happy to talk to you. Yeah.
Regarding the
I'll take your question.
Documentation
Yeah.
with respect to all the things that are coming up with respect to countries and organizations, we are doing a lot of things. But is there the requirement that is there? It is basically futuristic.
So these are what I call next practices. So I told them this is TVS 2030. But I said at the end of the thing, they were so excited, I made it 2028. So I said, at least in 2 years, you'll go a long way. So if you think like this, right? And they're saying, not thinking, Toyota's doing it, we better do it. So a lot of it also comes from like, somebody leads the way, right? Like Eli Lilly built his own AI factory. They spent like billions of dollars. They're saying it's worthwhile because with this intelligence, people can discover drugs faster, right? It uses AlphaFold, which has got 200 million molecules in it, which Google did. One molecule used to take one PhD, 5 years. They did 200 million molecules in 8 months, made it available, 4 million scientists using. They're saying we are accelerating research, scientific discovery. And they're saying this is a huge investment. Now, that's a capital investment. They created the Lilly pod. You can go and Google it. Now, Lilly did that. Now, Roche is saying we're also doing Roche pod. So, Toyota says Toyota GPT. Then everybody says we have to do TVS GPT. I'm sure our dean is going to say we have to do Ross GPT, right? Our Ross school, right? Etc. Or IIT GPT, whatever, right? I'm just saying that's going to become norm. But then it's not like then everybody has GPTs. It's like, so what's next? It's like, how good is it, right? Everything is intelligence, but what's the quality of that intelligence? So I believe it's going to be, like you're saying, yeah, it'll take a few years because quality also took a few years. But I'm convinced that's what's going to happen.
Is it not just like a bubble, AI bubble, what they say? That yes, there is a requirement for future.
It's not an AI bubble. This is real, right? This is next practices, actual business practices. This is real stuff which is paying real dividends. Like JP Morgan Chase. Yes. JP Morgan Chase, they released a report. They spent $2 billion across financial services, the regulated industry. And it's paid for itself. They won't be investing more. Their board won't invest more. So it's one of those things where maybe to get the flywheel going, you need it. But then what I'm saying is you don't have to make all these big investments. You can just use APIs with OpenAI and Anthropic, so long as you're okay just doing that. But increasingly, big companies are saying, we don't want to just consume AI, we want to build our own AI. Then you have to make the investment. Now, so there are some people like on this side saying, okay, we'll use APIs and we'll do this. But then there's only so much you can do because you can't train it with your data. You see what I'm saying? You can bring it into the context window, and every time you can point to and build connectors and say, okay, use this quality data, engineering data, and we can use RAG pipelines without getting all the technical things. It's good. And that may be enough for certain use cases, don't get me wrong. But if you want to build a core capability of the company, I think increasingly companies will have to do that. You see what I'm saying? Because it becomes part of the way you do business. Very quick, yeah.
What's your vision about AI in healthcare?
Okay. So same thing, like my chef thing, healthcare. There are lots of startups now that, just like my food delivery example, right? Like Open Evidence, where people are actually working to build these intelligence systems with physicians, right? Which is not, again, just consuming with APIs. They're actually able to do post-training and actually bring your data in as opposed to just use the RAG pipeline so that it's more customized. Because every hospital system is different, right? Physicians, they're different things. So it's moving that direction. But it's much more harder to do. It's more complex, more investment. So it's more challenging. But big hospitals are starting to do it. I know a couple of examples, right? So all these things evolve, no? Like if I would ask you, if you look back at IT, it took some 5-6 years for people to actually go from private cloud to public cloud. Then everybody's on public cloud. So these are all things, slowly these practices come. All I'm giving you is the next practices which are going to become best practices, I would say in 5 years or less. It may happen 2 years, I don't know. But that's basically what I'm saying, if that makes sense. But I think you said health. I think I would leave you with the question about education because that's, to me, is going to be the most complex. How many of you think that's going to be challenging? Very, right? I mean, you came here. Like, my son doesn't want to go to any class. He goes like, boring. right? And you're just like, stuff, I'll watch your video and things like. So the whole engagement has to change. Can you see that? And even if I give them like my Ross GPT, but Professor Ramaswamy GPT for my class, then you're interacting with the GPT. So what's my role? Well, there are professors now who have built these things. My role is to see how you're working with the GPT and learning, and then your GPT will be different from his GPT. And one of the computer science professors created that. And then when you take the exam, your questions in the question paper, which he gives, is different from here. And he gives them paper and pencil question paper first. I'm just cutting short his innovation, but he's a brilliant professor, brilliant innovation. And we're all like saying, well, that's a great one. And so then he's saying, I'm helping you learn better, but I don't know what your learning style is, what it is. And so he trains the AI system to help you learn the way you like to learn and what you want to learn, and then see how well you're learning, and you're graded on how well you're learning, not on output. That's, I think, I'm seeing that as one of good examples of like the kind of change that's coming. It'll take some time. Speaking of, it may take 5 years, but
Is it something like prompt engineering?
that's just engineering prompt. But he's, by the way, he's teaching computer science class. He teaches coding. Today, he told me our whole thing was exam first assignment. Here is the code. Find the bug in the code. You probably laugh now, right? Of course, for like 20 years, find bug in the code. I mean, I used to cycle to the system here with punch cards and then like find the hole in your punch card, right? Because it's the wrong hole and therefore the line of code is wrong. Now we've gone from there to automatic bug fixing. It'll tell you where the bug you accept or not, right? So what he's saying is you use Codex, you can use Cloud Code, but as you're using it, I'm going to see, are you just hitting yes, return, accepting everything it's saying? Because he's designing the assignment such that if you do that, the code won't run. You see what I'm saying? So people are forced to learn how to design these systems, and that's what his kind of exams are about. So all the other professors are saying, but now I have to reinvent my entire curriculum, how I use these systems, and how do I assess. So obviously for them, they know coding, they have to change. All I'm saying is all of us will have to change, including me. As businesses do this, I have to teach this, right? I can't be teaching the old Toyota stuff. But today, people teach the old Toyota system. I would say in 5 years, you can't teach it because that's not how Toyota works today. So we all have to evolve. Does that make sense? Is this good news or bad news, you think? If you ask all the old professors, it's bad news. Young people are like, I'm waiting to change my experience of either as a student or as a teacher. Because the young people also coming as teachers, they're also frustrated that they have to teach the old way. And the infrastructure is not set up for that. So I think we are all going to, like Modi ji said, co-create, co-work, and co-evolve, which is why I like that first clip. And I so hope that clip made sense finally. All right, thank you. Wish you all the very best. God bless. Thanks.